So I'm just going to say kind of a few words by means of introductions of all of you here. So we have quite an interesting cross-section of industry represented. I'm just going to start with Michael Crean. Michael Crean is the sales director, sales and marketing, regional sales and marketing director for SKF, looking after Western Europe. I don't know how many of you know who SKF are. Anyone not know who SKF is? Hand up if you don't know. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah,
sorry.
Doesn't know who they are. So SKF make ball bearings, and probably there's their product is in a huge amount of equipment or transportation that we are currently using. You know, I'm sure Michael could give more background to that, but no, they're a manufacturer of ball bearings. And probably the world's largest manufacturer. Is that right, Mark?
Yep.
Yeah, based out of Sweden. Managing a team of 650 employees. This is within Michael's region. They have 22 salespeople based in the UK, but Michael also has sales teams in Europe. He has 120 people working in Europe. Samantha, who will be joining us shortly, is the VP of Emea Sales. There's Samantha, I can see you on mute at the moment, working for an organization called Elastic. They have about 2,500 employees worldwide. They have 50 people selling in the UK, and they have 270 people working in Samantha's Emea Sales organization. We have Sarah Edge, Sales and Marketing Director of SOTI. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, Sarah.
Well, actually, some people do pronounce it that way. I say SOTI. I don't think it matters.
Okay, SOTI. With 1,200 employees in the telco sector, over 350 salespeople working. Is that in the UK and EMEA? Yeah.
Yeah, so 350 salespeople globally. It's a company, privately owned, about 1,200 people. It's actually the IT sector rather than telco.
Oh, the telco. Okay, thank you. We have Paul Devlin, who is the Chief Customer Officer for SUSE, turning over about $500 million annually. In the UK, 25 salespeople and 800 salespeople worldwide, reports eventually through to Paul. And we have John Nicholson, who is the sales director of Royal Mail, just recently taken the role of, what would you call it? UK sales director of the whole operation.
Including parcel.
Including parcels and letters. So in the logistics sector, John has a budget of 5 billion. Is that correct, John? Quite large budget. Paul's probably glad he's not at the Royal Mail at the moment. They have 144,000 employees, 400 salespeople actually work in the UK in the sales force, and you don't have any people working outside of the UK. So that's just a very short introduction of kind of who's who on the panel. All of you I've known in some form. I think two of you are ex-alumni from the Executive Masters. That's Sarah Edge and also Paul Devlin. I think, Michael, you've got a cohort of students going through the Masters at the moment, and we work very closely with Royal Mail as well across all their different levels of sales teams. But it's the first time that we've all come together for this kind of session now. Now, I'm going to, just for the purposes of the people who might be listening in and evaluating the kind of data, just say a few words about the chairs of the panel. So we have two different chairs, and we have Lynette, who I can't see Lynette. Is Lynette dropped out?
No, I can.
Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry, I couldn't see you for a moment. So, Lynette, could you introduce yourself briefly as co-chair?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, so I'm Professor Lynette Riles. I'm a Pro-Vice-Chancellor at Cranfield University and Chief Executive of MKU, which is a proposed new model university in Milton Keynes. I was the UK's first ever Professor of Sales, and my areas of research interest are things like CRMs. I'm interested in technology, sales technology, customer profitability, and then more recently, sales behaviours and sales leadership. So back to you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we're very lucky to have Lynette with us on this call. I think the first time I met Lynette, your leg was in a plaster cast. I think you'd just broken it skiing or something.
It wasn't a client, absolutely. It wasn't a client.
Yeah. Anyway, and just a few words for myself for the benefits of those that are listening to this is I'm the CEO of Consalia. We're a sales business school. And we have quite a large number of enterprises now going through our undergraduate and postgraduate sales related degrees. So I think I sort of cross between practitioner and the academic world, and love both, actually. Love both sides to it. Okay, so let's get into the actual the interview questions. We've got a set of foundational questions. These are more fact-based questions that I think will enable those listening in and researching these, this particular session with understanding the context of your world. And we want to keep the foundational questions fairly short, and to give you a chance to give a bit more background to your businesses and how they run, the kind of sales methodology and processes that you have in place. We're going to have about 5 minutes each for this. And then the main, I guess the main body of this session is going to be around the situational questions where we've got more time allocated. And I think this is going to be more conversational and a chance for us all to work together as a group. But we've roughly allocated 10 minutes per person for this part of the interview. We'll see how it goes. Lynette is going to play a role with me in asking some of the questions as well. So, but let's just get started if I could. And I'm going to keep to the structure that you've been sent already. So who to start with? I don't know if I could start with Sarah to begin with on the foundational questions about if you could give us an overview of the selling function of your company and to go into its markets, customers, and maybe some of the competitors that you're having to deal with.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're a privately owned company with head offices based in Canada. We actually have a suite of mobility solutions, and I'll try and simplify that. The core product is a product called Mobi Control, and it's actually a product that helps businesses manage all of their mobile devices. And that would be enrolling their devices, managing them out in the field, making sure that apps are secure. We have a help desk solution, so you can remotely access devices while people are out on the road to fix problems, and plus a whole other suite of solutions for that core product. And we also now have extended out our product suite. So we have a rapid app development tool. So for businesses who need to have apps but don't want to pay the big costs of having developers create their apps, we have a tool that enables a very quick creation of apps. And I mentioned briefly the help desk solution that we have. That's another new addition. And we also have now a similar way that we manage mobile devices. We also have a similar product for IoT devices. So we've just started out with printer management, but we'll be expanding that out to heating solutions and a whole host of other devices.
Brilliant. So in terms of who do you sell your solutions to? Who are your customers?
So actually, funny enough, we've obviously got John here. We've got Nordpost in our Nordic region. So we do actually have the equivalent over there of post office. But in the UK, we have the likes of McDonald's, we have Tesco's, we have Just Eat, Deliveroo, the Co-op. We have a whole load of transport logistics customers, so DX Freight, Wincanton. We have lots of retailers, so we have Halfords, River Island. We have pubs like JD Wetherspoon. We'll have hotel groups like Travelodge. So you probably would never have heard of SOTI, but I was quite surprised when I joined over a year ago. We've got over 1,000 UK customers, lots of them are household names.
Right, that's brilliant. And in terms of your sales force, then, how do you recruit your sales team?
So we have, it's an interesting company because the founder of the company is the CEO. So it's quite a different setup to something I've worked in before. And he likes to do everything in-house where possible. So we have an in-house recruitment team who do practically all of our recruitment globally, which sometimes is tricky. So for example, I also look after Israel and South Africa. And I've got a UK-based in-house recruitment team currently trying to fill positions out there for me. So it's not always easy,
right? But
that's how the business likes to do things.
Brilliant. So in terms of your sales process, perhaps you could just talk us quickly through the steps of your sales process.
Yeah, of course. So actually the business has put a lot of time and focus on this. So we use a value selling approach. And we're trying to actually shift the whole kind of sales organization to this at the moment, which is a little bit tricky. So we're trying to move that conversation away from price and product and features, and instead be talking about trying to understand the problems that businesses are facing. And also beyond that as well, the strategic ambitions of companies. And so what are they ultimately trying to achieve? And then what their business problems are. And then how what we do can help resolve some of those business problems. And we try to make that as ROI based as possible, so that we really can try and sell the benefits of what we're doing.
Okay, great. And I'm sure we'll come back to some further questions on that a bit later on. But if you were looking at the key determinants of success for selling in your business, what would it be? What would be the top things?
In terms of winning business, Phil?
Yes, in terms of winning business, what would be the key determinants of winning business?
Yeah, okay. So I ultimately have a revenue target for my region. And I guess my region is UK, Ireland, South Africa and Israel. So I have that number, and ultimately, obviously, in software, we're selling licenses. So it's, I guess, it's quite obvious, the bigger the customer, the more licenses we sell, the greater the revenue that way. We're also trying to upsell our other suite of solutions. So the core business is in this core product. Maybe 90% of our revenues are from the original product.
Yeah.
We're now trying to expand out and sell the other 4 products that we now offer, which is probably the biggest challenge, because you've got this legacy sales team who are very much, and also legacy partner base that are used to selling the one product.
Right.
And we're now trying to go beyond that. But success, obviously, is hitting that revenue number, and winning new logos is a big drive to win new business, because we see, obviously, that's where our growth comes from. And also selling this new suite of new products.
Great. Thank you. Well, let's move on to, perhaps we could move on to Michael at SKF.
Okay. Do you want to ask the questions again then?
Yes. So let's go through the selling function. What's the...
Okay. We've got a pretty diverse range. So if I started by explaining a bearing could cost 30 euro cents or 30p, it could cost 50,000 euro or 50,000 pounds, and even more than that in some applications. So in effect, we've got such a diverse range of customers, and we sell into the original equipment market, which means the bearing goes inside a machine and the machine gets sold. And those people have got a different type of capability and buying relationship from your maintenance and repair people, who it's a paper mill, it's a steel mill, it's a food manufacturer, and some of them are skilled, some of them not so skilled, so they need them on a replacement basis, and their costs of failure are high. It can be 5, 10, 20,000 euro an hour. It can be a lot of different challenges around contamination, quality, whatever. So coming back onto it, the sales force, it tends to be geographic, but you overlay that with some key account relationships because there are large players with heavy engineering and design capabilities. So if I gave you an extreme but visible example, a wind turbine. You don't just put one up, you don't just put any sort of bearing in there. There's a huge amount of engineering and design work that comes into play, but you've got a small pizza maker in some town in the UK who's got a couple of bearings, he'll buy them through a distributor. So another part of our business is to give access to product by having it with distributors who have got reach and skill, because our sales force is actually larger customers where we can afford to be there, and then we leave a significant part of the market to distributors, and then they have to take that to market. So it's quite a diverse range of skills and capabilities, and we're known as the bearing company, and that's where we came from, but Sarah used some words that are pretty similar to our logic and our challenges. We want to move from selling the product to selling rotation. Now, conceptually, that's quite difficult in relation to maybe software as a service, but the idea of selling uptime, output is where we are going, and that's starting to require some quite fundamentally different skills and capabilities. So lots of different sorts of people in the business. Some have grown up in it with lots of relationships and they know where customers are. So quite diverse mix.
Thank you. I think you probably described a little bit about the market and customers, competitors, perhaps.
Okay. It's an interesting market in that the legacy players are all long-term Japanese, European, American. It's a very capital-intensive industry. You don't just turn up and start making bearings. The machine tools cost a lot. The ability to have precision down to microns, and for those that don't relate, a micron is a very small part of a hair. So it gives you an idea of how much precision is required to give you the reliability for a domestic appliance, into a car or something else. So we've got these competitors. We're all known for the product, but we're also stretching into related products and services and applications that go beyond that. And so it is a intense industry from the application engineering and the design capability, and then that's, I think, how you create demand from the OEM. What goes out can go back in, so you invest well into the original equipment market, and then that gives you the aftermarket. More recently, Eastern European, the old communist countries, and China have become the new competition.
Brilliant. So where do you recruit your salespeople from?
I feel a bit guilty when I answer this one as well. We're not as well structured. I would say 50-50 internal and external. External, it tends to be we advertise for a role and we look at the attributes of the person, but a lot of our good ones come out of customer service or engineering roles into sales. And I think that we find that those people are good value because they actually have more of a culture of and ethos of the business. That can also be a constraint when you're moving into different areas. So as we're evolving, we're having to bring more people in from the outside. If you're looking at describing value and concepts, that's a different challenge to an engineering solution. And so, we have to confront the shift of value from us being the knowledge holder to the internet or whatever having it. So we're having to shift the way that we engage, but I would still say 50-50 in-house, promotion, development, next step, or external, and then external after that.
Brilliant. Thank you. So what sort of sales process does your team sort of adopt?
I saw the question, and I've got to give two answers. At one side, it is as simple as price and quote. Have you got this, and can you supply? And so that's the mindset of some of our customers. And strategically, OEMs do try and dumb products down, so they ask for a price and quote, and they'll ask more than one supplier. So you've got to be thoughtful about how you answer that one. But the more fundamental part of the business is building value and longevity into the relationship so that in effect you've got the business over years and that you continue to deliver the requisite reliability which delivers beyond the purchase price, because there's an ISO international standard nomenclature for bearings which makes them theoretically easy to compare. You said it, we are one of the big long-term players, so there's a lot of capability hidden within the product. So how do you actually get the right level of value for that? That's the challenge of the future. So pricing and quoting at one end, it is as simplistic as that, through to targeting new business, the new logo part, or basically evolving and developing an existing relationship from a supply one into rotation, performance, these sorts of things.
Do you segment your sales force into those that handle the pricing quotes and those that handle the...
We had that anyway, but I'll be honest, with COVID, in effect, we are changing our sales force to a greater inside sales capability, which handles more of that. Whether customers want it or not, I think you've got to push down that path. Otherwise, you're too heavy in terms of cost to serve. So bringing that in-house, improving our self-service logics, and then having your external sales force much more around business development, growth, and the differentiation actions.
That's great. And I'll ask the same question I asked Sarah, which what would be the most important determinants of successful selling for SKF?
I think that it's understanding what is important to the customer, and that's where I come back. It's easy in our business to say I'm competing against brand X, when I like to say you're competing against the customer status quo. So it's the way that they do things at the moment. So the ability to see a different angle and to be able to engage the customer and for them to buy that differentiation.
Okay. That's great. Michael, thank you very much.
Okay.
Perhaps I can come on to John.
Hello.
Next. Thank you. So John, can I go through the same questions with you? So selling function in the Royal Mail, perhaps you could give us an overview.
Yeah, so it's about 400 people in the UK, as you said at the top, Phil. Broadly, they're split into 4 camps. At a headline level, we're split into the Parcel Force sales team and the Royal Mail sales team. I've been part of the same group for an awful long time, but 2 totally different product sets, different systems, different customer base, different everything. So there's no similarity between the Royal Mail and the Parcel Force sales operations, I think, for want of a better word. In total, it's about £5 billion worth of revenue. I think, although I haven't absolutely validated it, it's probably the largest business-to-business trading base in the UK that we've got. So 230,000 trading customers, 30,000 of which we've got direct account managed relationships with. The remainder are what we call non-account managed, but they're a business account with us. An important differentiating point I think it's worth making, Phil, at this juncture is people often think we are the post office, Royal Mail is the post office and vice versa. We're not. I think we're slightly unique in that way when compared to other posts, which we are separate organisations. We used to be combined, but Royal Mail is a private business now. The post office is still partly government owned. And the post office is, in a simplistic form, our retail sales channel for consumers like you and I as individuals, or people that don't qualify for a Royal Mail business account, albeit people can buy those directly through Royal Mail as well. So there's some overlap there as that market continues to evolve.
That's great. So perhaps you can talk us through your sort of key markets and competitors. I know it's quite a competitive environment out there.
It's quite a competitive environment. Our key markets are really broad, Phil. So of course we've got the public sector and government. We've got our old traditional letters market, for want of a better word. You know, people do still occasionally send them. There's the advertising market. So the door-to-door leaflets are I'm reluctant to say junk mail, but that might be the easiest way that people relate to it. Of course, then there's the parcels market, which is the fastest growing part that we're in at the moment. It's been the fastest growing part of the business for a little while. COVID has accelerated that probably about 5 years. And then we've got the international market. So that is twofold, obviously UK-based customers looking to export to wherever around the world, and a handful of customers that have foreign bases. So although I don't have a foreign-based sales team, we still handle inquiries directly from abroad as well. And that's typically China, actually, but of course, Western Europe and the States as well. In terms of competitors in those different segments, they are quite different. The parcels one, many big names that we'll know, so Hermes, Amazon Logistics, DPD are probably our key competitors. We've also got the major integrators, DHL, UPS, FedEx, TNT, who are in a slightly different part of the market, more traditional competitors for Parcel Force rather than Royal Mail, but those lines are definitely blurred now as the focus is on business to consumer growth. In the letters market, our only real competition is our sales, because we have to operate a wholesale division because we're a regulated business. So companies like Whistle or Secured Mail, who ultimately are a front end, but we wholesale our products to, and then that traffic ultimately ends up in our network anyway. I should say for clarity, I'm not responsible, nor can I have access to any of the wholesale part of the business. It's one of the walls between different parts of the business.
Thank you, John. And I think we saw in the press recently the incredible results that Royal Mail have had. Was it 800 million above expectation for last year, which is quite a nice thing to have?
Yes, but it's 700 million, Phil.
Sorry,
that's okay. It's
100 million.
Cool. No, you're absolutely right, Phil, and it is great to have, but that comes from quite a low position, because our last market update prior to that was we were likely to be loss making. And actually, it's interesting listening to the others talk. So we're really in the penny stocks business in many ways. We're a high volume, low margin business. Regardless, so it's quite hard to drive a profit out of what we do, partly because we're a regulated business and there's certain restrictions placed upon us on what we have to do, which is brilliant. It's a privilege, but it's challenging with ever increasing costs, plus the very competitive nature of our fastest growing competitors in Amazon and Hermes and the like.
So where do you recruit your salespeople from?
Well, actually, Phil, we've got quite low churn. So the very vast majority of the sales team have got quite long tenure. 12 years is the average, but there's many with quite a lot more than that. The biggest recruitment drive, and you're familiar with this, of course, is the apprentices. So we've got quite 3 cohorts of apprentices. So not new recruitment, it is new recruitment, but not to replace vacancies. That's an investment in our future as opposed to replacing people that have left. When we do get vacancy, let's call it a normal vacancy in the run-of-mill, either through churn or people leave or we mutually decide we're not the right organisation for them, we're quite lucky that many of our because it is such a competitive market, and actually in many ways it's quite a generalist sell if you're selling parcel services to company A, we've got a really rich vein of people who are quite willing to join us and would like to join Royal Mail from one or some of our major competitors. So recruiting, thankfully, is quite easy. Although I empathise with some of what Sarah said, that's all internally done at the moment, which can sometimes prove challenging, but it's not too much of an issue for us.
That's great. So talk us through the typical sales process.
I'm not sure there is a typical sales process, Phil, just simply because of the variation in customers and size that we deal with. So I think I don't segment the customers anymore by sector now. They are typically segmented by size and geographies and so on. And if I think across the regions or the portfolios of customers that we have, there could be a government local authority sending letters right next to an pure play e-commerce retailer, and that sales journey is very different, but needs to be conducted by the same person, which is obviously can be a bit of a challenge. Very, very simply though, the sales process is really about understanding the opportunities that exist with any of those customers, and we've got a huge chunk of our work actually just goes into retention. So the market's kind of ours to lose, really. So, and we know we're the soft underbelly. So a big focus of ours is just keeping what we've got, quite frankly, or at the very least making sure that's growing at the same rate that the market is growing, and hopefully faster. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. Beyond that, it is almost a cliche, identifying the opportunities, just as the others have said, trying to drive value into what we do. We are rarely the cheapest in the market, which is can be a challenge. As long as we're delivering the right quality and the right service and product mix, then it's relatively easy to overcome in that respect, and we're normally pretty good at that. I'm not sure if that covers it, Phil, but there is such a variation of process. Part of what we've been doing over the last couple of years is removing a lot of the process to allow people to just use their expertise to manage their part of the business in the way that they see fit.
That's brilliant. And so finally, John, what would you say are the most important determinants of successful selling for the Royal Mail?
So for us, it's typically around being that best all-round service proposition. So I didn't cover it in your earlier question. One of our fastest growing sectors is the marketplaces. So people who sell on Amazon and eBay. So small businesses that you or I could start up, but selling through eBay and Amazon. And actually in that sector, there's just requirements that you have to meet, which are the table stakes to be able to sell through those platforms if you're a business. So quite often it's just a part of meeting those requirements. If you can't meet those requirements, you can't sell them the service. It's quite straightforward. Beyond that, it really is about delivering on our customers' promises. So clearly, particularly in the e-commerce space, delivery is becoming really relevant over the last year, but it's been getting more and more relevant over recent years. So quite often we're the only touch point once the customer's made their checkout on whichever retailer.com and our postman at the end. So the determinant really is the success of that supply chain, that final mile, working and doing everything it can and handling that part of our customer's journey for the benefit of their customers.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you, John. Paul, can I come on to you now? Or have I lost him?
Oh, Phil, sorry, I'm here. I was on mute.
You're on mute. And then Samantha after Paul. I think Samantha hopefully will be with us. I can't see her on the video. Great. Yeah, brilliant. So Paul, perhaps I could take you through the same questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So selling function in SUSE.
So for us, we have a multi-disciplined go-to-market strategy, Phil. Covers three main routes to market for SUSE. The first is a direct route to market where we use our own sales teams. The second is indirect, where we would go to market through our channel. So we have a huge ecosystem and SUSE. And then the third part is through our cloud ecosystem with the hyperscalers. So Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. And as part of that, the managed service providers that also offer cloud services to the market.
And so who are your customers? Who are your typical customers?
So we operate literally in every market. There's not a typical market for SUSE. So we're private equity owned, world's largest independent open source provider. We will compete against IBM, Red Hat, VMware, Canonical, and Oracle. They would be the four main companies that we compete against. But as I said, we're a global business. We have customers across all markets and all industries. But 45% of our revenues, Phil, are driven in EMEA, 35% from North America, the other 20% from the rest of the world. And the reality from a SUSE perspective, being an open source company, we support our customers in mission critical areas of their business. So that's typically the heart of their infrastructure, either in the data center or in the cloud or operating at the edge. And all of that is focused with our customers on how they power their digital transformation and the management of their applications through our Rancher solution.
Thank you. And in terms of salespeople, Paul, where do you recruit your sales teams?
So I think in common seems to be with everybody, Phil, we use our own internal recruiters. But there isn't a typical source that we would recruit from. You know, I guess like most companies, we will recruit from Red Hat, from VMware and from SAP. Although more recently, we've started to look for salespeople that have come from successful startups. And for us, I think what we found is we keep researching and keep trying to understand, if you like, learning from every hire that we bring on board. There's 5 distinct qualities that we will recruit for rather than paying attention to where they come from. So we're always trying to bring on people that have and can demonstrate curiosity of mind. We're looking at high growth mindset and people that are committed to a high growth mindset. Clearly trying to bring on people that have high levels of emotional intelligence and again can demonstrate that. In the world that we live in, resilience and being able to demonstrate resilience is really important to us. And then the final piece of that 5 is adaptability, because the one thing that we operate in is a world that is constantly changing, and it's changing for our customers, our partners, and for SUSE. And we need to know that we're bringing on board people that are comfortable operating in that world of adaptability.
Thank you, Paul. So what's a typical sales process?
So I think as most of my colleagues here have mentioned, there isn't really a typical sales process, Phil. Where we are focused with our sales process is on how our customers buy. Open source, what is unique is that everything that SUSE does is available for free. You know, the whole open source business model is that it is offered to the world for free. What SUSE does is take that free software that is created in the community. We call that upstream. We bring it downstream. We would harden it. We secure it. We put a lot of time and effort into making sure that that software is certified with a whole host of different technologies. And of course, then we support it. So what our customers are really doing is paying SUSE to be their, if you like, their insurance policy from an open source perspective. That is really what we're bringing to market. So what is really important to us is discovery, and the discovery part of a sales cycle, because we believe we're selling against human bias. You and I have talked about this a lot. We put a lot of time into discovery. What are our customers trying to do and why? We then put a lot of time into defining value and enabling us to hold a point of view that is relevant to that customer. So we want to give our customers a document that defines the SUSE point of view for what it is they're trying to achieve. We'll move on from that to whether it's business case or metrics, making sure that we understand that. We're really trying to understand, what does success look like to this customer? So we'll define success plans. We'll prove the value. We'll demonstrate how SUSE enables a customer to achieve that value. Then we will look to move to close. And then obviously after close, we'll look to move to implement the success plan and then get into a look with our customers. So, you know, did you achieve the success that you expected to? If not, why not? What did we learn together? And then hopefully get back into that cycle again as we look at upselling and cross-selling our customers.
Brilliant, thank you. And what would you say were the key determinants for your business?
Well, something that I hope, and you know, maybe Lynette will pick up on later. So things that are really important to us are behaviors. So we measure the behaviors of our sales force on a weekly and a monthly and a quarterly basis. And the reason that we do that is that we're trying to understand what behaviors are the ones that will give us higher predictability on success. So we use software to help us do that. But we literally measure everything that salespeople do. At the moment, I guess there are 5 determinants that we look for. The first one is, have we established a right to win? You know, have we really demonstrated that SUSE has a right to win? The next thing we look for is, have we established champions? And it's funny, you know, I've been selling for 30 years and having a champion has never left, no matter what sales methodology that I've personally worked with or our companies have worked with. And it's still really important today. Something we ask all of our salespeople is, having left the customer, who's now doing the selling on your behalf? And how do you know who is that person? Then the next piece for us is, have we established proper exec-to-exec relationships? So every single one of our execs in SUSE is measured on time that they spend with customers and the time that they put into sales cycles with our customers. And we're really looking at, did we establish exec-to-exec in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of a sales cycle? Then what we're trying to understand, Phil, is what is the difficulty in winning versus the prize? Yeah. So when you are in the world of open source, what you do is free and what you do is mission critical. It can be very difficult to replace an incumbent. Yeah. So we've got to understand, if we're putting energy in, what is the prize? How difficult is it going to be? And what is the prize that we can get for winning that? And if something's going to take a lot of energy and it's going to be really difficult and the outcome is a 100K win and we're not sure if we can win anything else, we will ask our sales teams to move on from that. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to establish long-term relationships that we can cross-sell and upsell to. And then the last piece we're really looking at is, can we exceed the business case? So having done that discovery work, having built a point of view and looked at value, how can we exceed that business case? Because again, by exceeding it, that is going to help us stay in with our customers for the long term. And customer success and longevity are really, really important to us. And, John picked up on that earlier.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Samantha, if I can come on to you.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Maybe I should start with just a little bit of background about Elastic, because I'm sure nobody knows who Elastic is, except every single open source developer does. So we're a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. I was fortunate enough, the last time I let Phil down, I was supposed to be presenting. I phoned him to say, I can't present today because I have to go to the listing. Would you mind if I dumped you to go to a listing in New York? So very successful listing. Similar to what Paul was saying is, as an open source company, we've had over 500 million downloads. So we have, you could say, 500 million developers using Elasticsearch. And really what Elastic is it's a search company. So if you think of Uber, every time you're searching for a driver, the driver's searching for you on a map. That's Elastic. If you go onto Wikipedia, that's Elastic. But what happened is our open source developers took the code and they built it into the enterprise. So our customers are banks, telcos, software technologies, any developer who's looking to build a search angle, whether it's searching data or traces or security logs or fraud or money laundering, you name it, they're using search. So that's who Elasticsearch are. We take to market a platform. So we're trying to drive a platform where you put all your data into this platform, and then you've got a layer on top, these curated UIs that help you search for whatever you're looking at. So we take the platform to market with 3 sort of solutions on top of it. So the one is security. So you can think of all the security analytics that goes on within a large bank. The other is observability, which means we monitor the uptime of all their hardware, their network, their infrastructure. And then our third solution is enterprise search. So if you're an e-commerce organization, that search box on your website is probably Elasticsearch. Or we've just launched a new solution, which is called Workplace Search, which is, if you want to search your Slack, your Zoom, your email, your Google, your Dropbox, because you can never find anything. It's a productivity tool. You put it into your search box and we will pull all that data from all your various applications. So that's Elastic in a nutshell. We also, like Paul, have go-to-market as direct channel, and often Elastic is actually embedded into large software vendors. So a lot of our competitors, their application, the engine of that application is our search product. They just have the UI, a different UI on top. So, and we've got, again, the cloud providers and managed service providers. So companies like Atos or Capgemini, they would take a security service to market with the Elastic engine in that security managed service that they deliver to their customers. We've got 3 segments that we focus on: public sector, which is a large segment for us; enterprise, which is your banks, your telcos, 4,000 employees plus; and then commercial, which is 4,000 employees and below. So we've got an enterprise sales team, but we're now actually building out a high velocity inside sales team. I'm about to employ 50 people into Europe to go after new logo and the SMB market and drive cloud adoption. So that's quite a big shift we're going through at the moment. We've got 4 regions: Asia, US, and Europe. Europe is about 35% of the business, so we're doing quite well. And as I said to you before, we've got the 500 million downloads. So I don't think there's a developer out there that doesn't know who Elastic is, because they're all using our technology. So we've got what we're really proud of, which is this bottom-up motion. So, we do a lot of, at the top of the funnel, we do a lot of nurturing and demand generation that goes into SDRs, who we call user success teams. They pick up the phone to all the developers that have touched a blog or come to an event or called us for some help. And we reach out to them and we say, are you successful? Are you enjoying using Elastic open source? Did you know we sell a commercial product? Because they've got the free product, which is machine learning, it's security, it's alerting. So it's more functionality. So for the last 6 years, this bottom-up motion has been fantastic for Elastic, because I would say a lot of our salespeople were order takers. The business, there was an influx of leads that came. And we were talking to the developers. They'd go and get the budget, they'd try it out, they'd tell another friend, they'd say, oh, you have got to try the machine learning. The more developers you spoke to in an organization, the more subscriptions you land. And then what we found is our enterprise organization says, sure, we can't have 200 subscriptions of Elastic. Why don't we build a center of excellence? So then we saw these center of excellences pop up, where you would have a team of maybe 20 different people running Elastic as a service into an organization, where they would have, up to 900 projects coming to this center of excellence to use the Elasticsearch product. And then what we started to see is, if we want large deals, that's not going to be done at the developer level. That's going to come from a center of excellence. It goes up to the CIO. You say to the CIO or the CTO, did you know you have 900 projects on Elasticsearch? Can we talk to you about landing a platform into your organization? So our go-to-market, our sales motions divided into this bottom-up, which has been very successful for us. But now we have to, we're bringing in, which is quite a mind shift for the business, top-down as well. We need to build our brand in the executive. We need to build executive relationships. Because that's where you land the $10 to $20 million deals. So those are the 2 sort of key sales motions that we're building at the moment, or enhancing. Our competitors are often our OEM products or our sort of partners, but it's the likes of Dynatrace, Datadog, Microsoft, AWS. We've got a lot of point type solution competitors, but then because we've got the 3 solutions, but we've also got, although Azure and Microsoft are we sell on the cloud and we drive consumption on the cloud, and they're also a competitor. So AWS sells, actually they take our product and they wrap it as their own free product, and they market it to their customers. So, you know, we've got lots of competitors. So we cooperate with a lot of our competitors as well, which is quite an interesting dynamic.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think you've answered quite a few of the questions we have in that first section. Perhaps I could just come back down to the sort of sales methodology and approach. I mean, do you have a standard sales methodology, or is it very much specific?
We have a very defined sales process. So everybody knows it. It's built into Salesforce. You know, it really starts with inspiring our customers. So whether that's through open source, through testing the free products, and, you know, we do a lot of the nurturing and the hand holding so that they test it. Then we engage with them specifically from the bottom up. You know, we engage, we talk about a proof of concept. We talk about our machine learning. We'll define the technical fit, then we define the budget, then we put a proposal together, and then we negotiate. That's the bottoms up. The top down sales process, we're going to is a little more to what Paul said, where we're going to say, you know, can we come in and do an assessment with you? Can we truly understand the business value and the impact? How do we put an ROI business case on the table? How do we define a detailed scope of work? How do we once we've sold that deal, how do we circle back and ensure that you receive the value that we did? So you've got two, although it's one process, we've added another layer of complexity for that bottom down motion to a certain set of accounts, where we'll invest with ideation consultants and value engineers to put to drive more strategic value in the conversation, which should result in larger platform deals for us.
That's great. Well, I think we've covered all of the sort of foundational questions of the team, and I'm just going to ask Lynette. Lynette, do you have any particular questions you feel you'd like to ask at this stage of the group?
Yeah. So if I could please, I mean, perhaps picking up on something that Paul said about behaviours, and certainly looking at sales behaviours, the kinds of things that you've been describing around developing solutions and value, we know is very much associated with success. But some time back, we discovered that there were certain things that weren't associated with success. So some behaviours like sort of self-presentation and rapport building and that sort of thing. And then also we had this idea that about U-shaped versus linear behaviour. So there are some behaviours like closing, where if you don't do enough of it, it's not very successful. But if you do too much of it, you can put the client off. So that's a U-shaped behaviour. Or you have others which are linear, and the more you do of them, the more likely you are to achieve sales success. So with those thoughts in mind, I really wanted to ask people to just reflect on how their experiences have been of COVID, and say, have there been any changes that you've seen in things that make sales success in that resulting from COVID? And then maybe as a sort of second question, say, what of that do you think will stick, and what do you think we will kind of revert back to? Since I mentioned Paul, Phil, is it okay for us to go to Paul first?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
COVID. I think what is interesting about COVID is if I look on the positive side of it, if that's even possible. But I think what it has driven is opportunity everywhere. And, you know, there really is opportunity now more than at any point in my sales career. And I think that's been driven by the fact that customers need help in establishing particularly accountable value from software vendors now more than they've ever done. So I think you've got a situation where as sales teams have shifted to be home-based and customers have shifted to be home-based, the physical connection between a buyer and seller has changed. A lot of selling has moved to be around research, even more so than it has ever been. So you've got customers through research, through their networks, And I keep hearing numbers of 70% of a sales cycle is done before they were engaged with a sales team. I think sometimes it's even more than that. So if I go back to, if that is the case, then, you are selling against human bias, because if as a human being, if I've done all of my research, that research means I've formed an opinion, and that opinion may be for you or against you. So I think what that is meant is new ways of thinking around how you solve a problem of selling. So we've switched. Samantha mentioned this earlier. When I joined SUSE, we didn't have a digital sales team. Everything was field-based. We now have close to 70 digital salespeople that sit in EMEA and North America. We're using software more than we've ever done to understand when is the right place in a sales cycle to go target a person. We're starting to understand that it's actually somewhere between the 5th and the 7th time of trying to get in contact with somebody that they will begin to listen if you've got the right message. It's between 5 and 7 that they will actually say, okay, I do have a project. I am thinking about this. I would like you now to come and talk to me. So I go back to resilience, and you've got to look for people in this world that have resilience. I've put in my response to you, Phil, as far as I'm concerned, the old ways of selling and indeed sales leadership from my perspective are dead. You've got to have a point of view as a salesperson. And what that means is you've got to understand the industry. You've got to understand what you're doing. You've got to understand a bit about the person that you're trying to sell to. And you've got to have a point of view about why you're relevant to that individual and why you're relevant to that company. And I think, you've got to keep at that with resilience, because I said it's 5 to 7 tries before somebody is going to trust you enough to say, actually, I do have something. So you're seeing that change. So you've got resilience now being important, curiosity of mind being really, really important, understanding, getting behind why do customers do what they do? Why do they think what they think? How have they formed that opinion? And it's only by getting behind it and understanding it that you can start to then put your story in the context of what that customer is trying to do. But you can do it in a very differentiated way. So we're using tools that, we've never, I'm using a tool like Mural, which I'd never used before, that allows us to whiteboard digitally. We're putting pre-sales people in beside our digital sales teams, sitting side by side, so that if a customer says, can you show me this? There's somebody they can bring into the sales cycle there and then. And that we can demonstrate, having understood that concept, we can start to show the art of the possible really, really quickly. So I don't think I've got, customers now, Phil and Lynette, that are saying to us, Paul, gone are the days when I want you to turn up with 5 or 6 or 7 people and come see me, 3 or 4 times a quarter. I want to see you twice a year. Take me out for a beer and a dinner. We'll go out twice a year. That's great. The rest of the time, I'm very, very comfortable now dealing with you digitally in this way and in this format. So that's what's changed. And I'm seeing a lot of our sales team really struggling. A lot of our sales leaders are really struggling getting their head around how you cope, lead, and drive in a digital world that is very, very different when they're used to that human interaction, that physical connection with a customer, and a customer saying, I only want to see you twice a year. Yeah, so our leadership are having to change their skill set and their mindset to how we lead in this digital world. And, look, at a personal level, I've had to learn more about mental health in this past 12 months than I have in 30 years of my career, because I've got to find new ways of understanding whether people on the other end of the video camera may be struggling, may not be telling me, but are struggling mentally because they cannot get out of, this 4x4 room that they sit in 5 days a week and have sat in for the last 12 months. And I think as sales leaders, we're having to deal much, much more with, Samantha used a word that I love earlier, inspiration. We're having to get more creative at how do we inspire people to get out there every single day and go do the job in a very, very different way, in a much more digital way, a much more creative way. And Lynette, back to how you finished the question, I don't think it will, personally, I don't think it will ever go back. I don't think it will ever go back to people getting on a plane en masse. We used to talk about, when I was at SAP, we used to talk about parking the bus. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, where 5, 6, 7 people turn up to see a customer, once a month. I don't think we will go back to that again. That's just my personal point of view. And then behaviorally, what we are starting to now measure, because we want to have a different dialogue with our salespeople, not just about pipeline and revenue. We want to understand what they do every day and what do we achieve as a result of what they do, and how do we help them do that better. So what we're trying to understand from their behavior is to hold a mirror up to them, use software that allows us to do it, but actually hold a mirror to them so that we can have a much more coaching focused dialogue with our sales teams. And that's proving both a big positive in terms of some of the mental health that we talked about, our ability as leaders to coach and support very, very differently. And again, I don't think those things will ever change either. So sorry, a long-winded way, but that's my point of view.
No, really fascinating. Thank you, Paul. Samantha, Paul's called you out a couple of times on this. So what's your view? How have you seen sales behaviours changing? Have you changed your style as a sales leader? What's going to stick?
We've always been a distributed company, so by design. So for us, COVID has been fantastic for our business. We've seen fantastic growth, fortunately. I think the shift to digital and Zoom meetings hasn't been too difficult for our teams, because we've hired talent, all over the world. It's something that, is quite natural for us to be engaging all on video all the time. So video I think is really helpful. But I think to build on what Paul said, I think what's become more apparent is the role of marketing and digital marketing in our success. And the cross-functional collaboration as a leader internally is becoming more critical. Even today, sitting on a pipeline call, what is my contribution from partners, from marketing, from the SDR organization? So it's, for me, my leadership challenge has been, how do I bring them on board with what we're trying to achieve so that we're all working towards these revenue objectives? And how do I inspect their behavior as if it's revenue generating behavior, which maybe they haven't, maybe that sort of behavior I haven't seen in my previous companies. So more so than ever, digital marketing is going to be an understanding the buying cycle in depth, by industry, by persona type, as they move through their buying cycle. What is our role to play? When do we play it? Do we have the right content? And then when we do show up at that 70 or 80% chance, we've got one chance. And you're going to make it count and make sure you have the conversation, ask the right discovery questions without the customer feeling interrogated, because I think too often, that happens, and get the information we need to demonstrate value and relevance and, to shine. And then we've also looked at other roles where, again, to build on what Paul said, is where, how do we help the customer learn to use our technology in the cloud? Everyone's moving to the cloud. So how do we hold their hand? Are we available on chat? Can we jump on a quick Zoom call, etc.? So we're investing in almost user success, right from the beginning of the sales cycle through to customer success. and then to support. I think the buying cycle is extending, and we're seeing a lot more focus on customer success as well.
And Paul says it's going to stick, Samantha. Your view? Is this a permanent shift?
I think we might shift. I think it's I see ourselves somewhere in the middle. I think, what we've enjoyed, I mean, our end of quarters, we've been getting POs at 11, 12 o'clock at night, because just like we're at home, the procurement officers at home, the legal teams at home. So it's been good for us, in terms of forecasting and getting those deals across the line. But I do think in time, certain companies will expect their teams to go back to the office. I don't think travel will ever be the same, but I do see ourselves, I think there's a balance, and maybe we're going to shift slightly back, maybe shift 10% back to the
not like on the bus like Paul was saying, but maybe a mini bus.
Yeah, maybe a car with 1 or 2 people rather than a bus.
Thank you. Thanks. That's great. So, John, you've been having a good time as well in COVID. And what sort of shifts have you seen in these sales behaviours, and will it stick?
So it's, well, I don't know if we've been having a good time, Lynette. We've been having quite a successful time because demand for our product has increased. But actually, the other side of that is a huge part of our customer base reduced their needs as well, as offices were shut, shops shut. So we had the challenge that all of our customers wanted something at the same time. So whether that's, I've got more stuff to go, I need more trucks, I want a cheaper price, I need to renegotiate, blah, 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 or I've got less, I don't want you to bill me, can I get rid of my surcharges, my profile's changed, can you collect from somewhere else and not here? So everybody wanted something. I think behaviourally what that did, interestingly, and it's an unintended consequence of that, is it really stress tested our activity levels. So I think we probably all reach a point where we go, that feels like an acceptable activity level for us, whether that's whatever it is, 10 calls, 100 calls per week, per day. We just quadrupled everything because the demand was just there. And I'll say we handled it. I'll pick up on Paul's point of mental health. We dealt with it, and we got some, and our people got some leniency from customers because everybody was accepting of the situation. I think that's fair to say. But our people worked incredibly hard to just try and deal with it with best intentions. And that's back to that mental health piece. So all of a sudden, it didn't matter whether you were a digital or a desk person or a field person before. If you had 50 customers, 1 customer, or 1,000 customers, all of a sudden everyone's doing the same thing at home through this screen. And it was a leveler in that respect. So on the returning to offices, returning to travel, so I've got a dispersed sales team across the UK, but I've got 5 or 6 medium-sized sales centres, indoor sales teams. And in the main, those people are chomping to get back into those sales centres. And I have to be honest, I've not yet decided whether having them back or keeping them at home is the right answer. For their mental health, actually, and the community aspect of indoor sales selling, I'm convinced being back together in my environment, in the industry I'm in, is a benefit. But I'm also really aware I don't want to rob people of some of the freedoms that the flexibility that they've started to get used to. So that's going to be an interesting balance to strike. And travel, I absolutely agree, I don't think will be the same. But particularly from some of our customers, our mid-sized customers upwards, there's still a real physicality to what we do. Actually going to, as we say, going to the back door and just having a look at the stuff coming out of it is where we spot a lot of our opportunities. And if I can't create the desire for what are our traditional field salespeople to actually force themselves out of their home offices to go and have a look at what's going on in a customer, I'm nervous we're going to miss some of those opportunities, because that is a great source of, so even if it's just a competitor's van turning up, we won't see that anymore if we're not there. So I think that's really interesting. And just as Paul and Samantha were talking, I was reflecting, behaviourally, I don't think we've set the standards yet. I know I've not said to my team, the standards when you turn up to a Zoom call or a Teams meeting is you should still put your suit on, or you shouldn't, or you should present in this way, or a lot of the things that I think we probably take for granted in the sales profession because there's that intuitive knowing of what's appropriate when we turn up. I don't think we've done that yet. I don't think we've found that standard. And I know when we park the virtual bus with some of our customers, they turn up in all sorts of different attires with different approaches. Some are more relaxed, some are happy to have their cats jumping over the place, some are talking to their wives or husband. And we've not really found the level in all circumstances there. So I'm not quite sure what behaviours I want to drive there. Am I really comfortable with this more relaxed approach? Do I feel like we're getting to know our customers better because we can see inside their houses? Or not? Is that a good thing? Do I want people with Royal Mail backgrounds all of the time? I'm not sure. So I think there's a real a base level of standards that we've probably got to decide on.
That's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. And so, Sarah, you've heard some different views there about whether it's, what behaviours have changed or whether things are going to stick or not. Where are you on that?
So it's been an interesting one for us. So we've had sort of mixed successes and challenges due to COVID. We do have a lot of customers in the retail sector. So as same with John, really, we had, even now, lots of challenges around, payment, everyone wanting something, extended payment terms, lower prices, whatever it might be. So we have had to deal with a lot of that. My sales team were already home-based. We do have an office in the UK, randomly it's in Solihull. So none of us were going that frequently there anyway, because we're all over the place. I've got some overseas. But there is a big difference, obviously, because everyone is now permanently at home, and it's definitely changed their roles, and I'm not sure all of them are happy with it. So whereas before they were out and about seeing our big, I've got two different teams, different sales teams. I have a renewals team who look after all our existing business. I have a team who look after our big, massive customers who buy from us directly. And that team were all very much used to being out in their offices. 3 times a week they go and sit in those customer offices and have lots of different meetings and find lots of opportunity that way. They've definitely struggled a bit more with that by being based at home. And then I have a big team who will look after our channel partners. It's been the most challenging for them because they've probably suffered the most in terms of sales. So, and the focus is really, I've put a lot more focus on them because I know they're at home and they're not traveling in the car 4 hours to go and see a partner to then be in a meeting for 2 hours. So because they're at home, I have put a lot more demands on them in terms of, really working through how to get value from our existing customers. What's the plan behind that? Who are we going to contact? How are we going to contact them? This whole kind of planning this approach before you get in touch. So I've been making them do a lot more of that. And I say making because I've had quite a lot of resistance to it. They've not been really comfortable because they've been very much a team used to working with channel partners. And now I'm making them go and talk to end customers. Some have been happy with that approach, but others have really struggled. So it's been quite a difficult time. And I use the word making, but, I'm very much kind of running initiatives and asking them to be part of that, just because our sales numbers our growth targets are huge, and it's been really challenging to achieve those numbers. So in terms of going forward, I think actually it really depends on our customers and our partners. So if our customers and partners keep this same approach and tend to be now more home-based, and if they don't want to see us as regularly, then we are going to be very much, an inside sales team going forward. And for me, that then means, do I need the same set of people that I have today? If we're going to be, going on as an inside sales team, then I potentially do need a different set of people. So that's one thing that I'm looking at the moment for our new financial year. So I expect that some of our partners probably will get back in. I think some of our big customers, maybe they will, but it's hard to tell at the moment. Even, the company that I'm working in, we have 3 huge offices out in Canada. The owner of the company was very much all about people being, in the office, and he's now letting go of 2 of those offices, and we'll only have 1, and we'll move to a permanent part-time office-based solution. So people will be expected to be in 2 days every fortnight, and the rest of the time working from home. So we've seen big shifts now that we'll never go back now to how it was. So yeah, it's kind of posing different challenges. You know, some good opportunities because people have got more time on their hands because you're not traveling and commuting. But it's challenging because I think a lot of salespeople perhaps aren't enjoying it as much because they like the getting out there and seeing people and having meetings and having a lunch. You know, and that's sort of the fun part. And I think a lot of them have lost that now. It's very much, you know, calls to get through business objectives and to sell.
Yeah. Really, that's really fascinating. Thank you. Thanks. And coming to Michael, so how is it in the big bearings world? I mean, changes in behaviours, what will stick?
Well, our business did fall off a cliff when the COVID crisis hit. There's no argument about that. And if you think about, they talked about blue skies and things like that and CO2 emissions down. That was less energy, less work. That was a real shock because we're an engineering company and we're going through that transition from the best product to representing value and being able to communicate that value. So I think it was good for us in terms of accelerating it. I'll take one of Sarah's themes. My pressure, and it gets reacted, is sales is a process, and you've got to track that process to know what's going on. And we're going down that path. I think COVID has improved their respect and understanding for a process because they could see customers, and I'll say contact without context. I'll see my customer because, well, when you can't see them, then they start to ask questions. Well, even if it's a Zoom meeting, what are we going to talk about? So the quality of preparation from our people, I think it was a good positive accelerator in that respect. I'll come back on one of Paul's points that sales manager as coach before and after, absolutely vital. And that's my point about the process, that if you don't actually know what your people are doing remotely, you can't help them and you can't give each individual the type of support they need. And that sales manager as coach comes also over onto the mental health side, that it keeps a dynamic of contact, which I think is important. So things will go back, but not all the way. I think too much has gone, too much water under the bridge. A lot of customers, whether they are right or wrong, they think they know more of the answer before they see you. And so that's it's both. They do and they don't. But back on Paul's point, if they think that's what the situation is, that is their reality. And you've got to then work with that one. So our change points of more digital and internal sales are fundamental because it is about cost to serve. And you've got to then confront and say, our salespeople were doing work that others in the organization could do, and they'd put their arms around the customer. It's my customer. I think we've been able to break some of those things down and get more of a team feel and things. So I think those are important points. And I also think we'd talked about agile in our business over time, but it became real if you did it right. So when you started these things, you'd have people turn up with PowerPoint presentations. Then after you did the cycle a number of times, they figured they couldn't keep up with PowerPoint. So they actually did the actions and they talked about it, and you got much better quality of discussion, understanding, and development than you had before. So I think we're moving faster in the things that we do. And if I come back on my final one that knits a number of them together, we're starting to learn, and ours is more of a, I think, John, it's your sort of, I call it a production operation. You've got resource and you've got to keep on applying it. The concept of sales velocity, when you're looking at it, not as a number, but as a trending tool, number of opportunity, average value, hit rate, and cycle time. And what it does is it opens up so much discussion that's individualized to a person and their opportunity. It's not the number that I value, it's the way that it gives you a context. You can aggregate to something that's really useful from a business point of view, and it's helped us significantly to come back and to be able to be fewer opportunities, higher value, and shorter cycle time. So you knit those things in together. So and I'd also, my final point, 2020 was about, I call it adrenaline, where everyone decamped and did what they needed to do. We are still figuring out, as John said, what is the new normal. And we want to shape some of that. We want to hold people away from some old habits, but you also want to give people a level of autonomy that you didn't actually, I'd say, even bother to think about previously. And COVID has confronted a lot of things where, the home working will be a bigger part of inside sales, customer service, and roles that we just said you need to do them in the office. Now we've recognized that you don't need to do it, and you can get productivity gain, satisfaction, but you do need an office environment for the social aspects, which I think are still there, the soft elements, and also to bring new people into the business. You good people, they can work from home. I'm not yet convinced that you can employ new hires in our business and they can do the job. And getting to see customers, we'll get back, and we've been maintaining contact, but it's much more justified and I'd say development-based contact. So there's my summary.
That's a superb summary. Thank you. So Phil, back to you. I've been hearing, I think, some themes here around pre-preparation, coaching, well-being and mental health, a sort of more digital and inside sales, and then perhaps still working on what the new normal is, I think, were my quick summary points. But back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm very conscious of time here as well, because I know that we're almost on the hour, but I do have, I think, a final question that I'd like to ask in a more plenary situation, if that's okay, because you mentioned the word agility earlier on, and a lot of us are either having to execute strategies that are transforming the way that we work internally, and some of us are actually selling transformation to our customers. Perhaps some of you are doing both selling transformation and also managing transformation inside your own organizations. I was taken with a comment some years ago by Forrester, which talked about the length of time it takes to go from strategy to execution in the field. And the frustration was of CEOs of sales teams was that on average, it took about 18 months to take an idea that was set about in the board to execution in the field. And I've been wondering, in this current COVID world in which we're in, whether the pace of change, the pace of taking an idea or a strategy and executing it in the field is either quicker, slower, or about the same as it was. Are you with me with the question? So I'm not going to single anyone out. I don't know if anyone would like to answer that question, but I'm really interested in this pace of change that's taking part right now, and whether or not you've got a point of view about that. Would anyone like to kick off? John, I think I see.
If I may, I think it's interesting. I've been speaking quite a lot about this. I think the pace of change for the headline of change has been just quicker. It's been more rapid through necessity. But I think what we'll start to see in the fullness of time is that change hasn't been as well thought through or as well executed as we think it is now. Okay. And that won't be the same. I'm generalising, of course, but if I think of, there's a reason that execution of change takes 18 months, if that's the right time, to get from the boardroom to the front line, and that's because it's complex. And of course, there's always ways that you can rationalise it, you can make it quicker, and necessity is the mother of change, isn't it? But there's going to be an awful lot of things that aren't done properly, have got sticking plasters over them. And I was reflecting on what Michael said. I think we're drawing down on relationship capital. So where we've been working the same way, whether that's in the office or with physical relationships with our customers, we're able to maintain those relationships, we've got them. Where we're starting new relationships with people, we don't have that relationship capital to draw down on anymore. And therefore the change that we haven't thought through in our sales processes, that's going to come, I think, out through that over the next 18 months where we realise we've got gaps.
That's interesting. Any comments from the others?
I think I would echo that, Phil. I remember one of the things you taught me well, Phil, was that transformation at the end of it has to look entirely different to what it did when you started it. And I think the problem is, put in the context of sales, you're dealing typically with people that have got 20 years or more, even 10 years or more of ingrained behavior. And not only do they have ingrained behavior, they have a process for doing things that they believe to be right. It has served them well, and it's enabled them to be successful. I think the challenge is that so much has changed so quickly. And as companies try and transform, to the point that John made, if we don't think it through properly, the problem is we will leave so many of our employees behind. Yeah, so you end up with transformation actually happening at different levels. You got the people in the org that get it, that go with it. They're the ones that are highly adaptable, high levels of emotional intelligence, they're highly adaptable, they're highly resilient. They will go for it. They don't mind getting it wrong. Yeah, but you need leadership that comes with them. You need leadership that's highly adaptable, that has high levels of resilience as well. And the challenge is you've got to bring those things at the same time. So where I struggled with transformation in my own organization, and I've seen this in a whole number of orgs, Phil, the problem is transformation goes from the top down. In selling, it has to be the opposite way. You've got to get the first level leadership to be the ones that transform first, because the field looks up to that level of leadership. And as they look up, if all they get is what they had before, because this level hasn't bought into it, then your transformation is going to take 5 times, 10 times longer. And what I've seen is a lot of companies forget. They try and do it top down. Actually, it's the first level sales leadership in the context of sales that will make or break a sales transformation. And I've learned that to my peril. I've gotten it wrong because I didn't concentrate there. And when I've realized that and you start to concentrate there, you get sales transformation that happens a lot quicker.
I'm just going to add something onto that, which I think is we need to acknowledge that anyone in our business has had a hard 12 months. And so it's not like a small number of people have changed. And I think we've got to then think the CEO doesn't know the answers. And I think that what I want to try and do in our business is listen and marry the top and the bottom together. So Paul, I buy in, if you don't get your sales managers on board, the day-to-day life of salespeople doesn't change. They get the same old. So it doesn't matter what words, what happens. So if you can harness some of that, and that's where I come back on that context in our business of agile, of giving them situations where they have to participate and that they have to then acknowledge what these changes are, then you loosen it up. And I'm not convinced we know the answers at the moment either. So you're heading in some directions about how you operate with your business and how your customers will act. But I think we each need to validate them as we move forward, because there's a lot of dynamic within the buying and the buying communities that we deal with that are going to shift, and you cannot assume you know the answer. So top-down transformation isn't transformation as such. So how do we bring the people along and that they create the wave?
Really interesting. I'm conscious with over time, and I don't want to keep you, longer than necessary. But are there any other inputs to the question, or we can kind of draw things to a close, I think. Lynette, are there any final comments you'd like to make?
No, I mean, I think just a really, really insightful and very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, can I say a huge thanks to you all for your time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the academics make of all this, Lynette. I expect you will be as well.